Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to the 9 p.m. live news edition. The top stories. Signing of a document on the joint biennial health program 2020-2021. Fighting intensifies. Azerbaijan demands Armenian withdrawal. Hello, welcome to our newsroom for having the news in details. This morning, Monday, October 5th, 2020, was held at the People's Palace, a meeting chaired by His Excellency Prime Minister Abdulqadir Mohammed Kamil on the follow-up of the priority project of tourism sector identified during the September 2019 laboratories. The meeting was attended by the Ministry of Town Planning, Environment and Tourism, Mohammed Abdul Qadir, the Commissioner of Plans and Coordinator of Monitoring and Evaluation Units, Amar Ali, the General Secretary for the Ministry of Urban Planning, Dili Abdullah, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Ali Silai, the Director of Tourism Office, Osman Abdi, those in charge of the Monitoring and Evaluation Unit for Priority Public Policies. These projects are as follows. Project of development and valorization of the tourism sites of Lak Asal, project to develop and enhance tourism site of Lak Abe, Duda Beach National Park Enhancement Project, Arta Beach and a Mountain Trail Development Project, Djibouti Marina Construction Project. The Prime Minister opened the meeting by recalling the importance of the development of those tourism sector for the socio-economic development of the country, particularly the creation of jobs in the fight against poverty. He emphasized the exploitation and development of the natural resources that abound at the Lak Abe site, such as the use of mud for a therapeutic purpose. In addition, he recalled that the realization of tourism project is the responsibility of the private sector. However, the government must finance the basic infrastructure necessary, roads, water, energy, communication, to the realization of this project. The Minister of Town Planning, Environment and Tourism briefly presented the component and cost of the project of this development and enhancement of the tourism site of Lak Asal. This project, which extends over an area of 14,000 square meters, includes lodging and restoration, a spa resort, a commercial space, a parking space. The investment costs are estimated at around 200 million Franc Djibouti. This project will create more than 67 direct jobs and will generate annual revenues estimated at 254 million Franc Djibouti. Moving now to another subject now, the President of the National Assembly, Mr. Mohammed Ali Ahmed, received today on a farewell visit Koji Yanatani, Ambassador of Japan to the Republic of Djibouti. The outgoing Japanese ambassador told the head of the hemicycle that he came to say goodbye, but also thanked him for his constant availability, support and friendship during his mission. The ambassador was accredited to Djibouti since late 2017, and this farewell visit marked the end of nearly 3 years of service of this diplomat on Djibouti soil. The Japanese diplomat warmly thanked the people of Djibouti for the welcome and hospitality that has always been reserved for him in the country during his tenure. In addition, the head of the hemicycle and his host of the day reviewed several topics of common interest, including sustaining the efforts to improve some basic social structures in the capital and in the hinterland to fight against maritime piracy, which is almost swept out, the provision of rolling stock for some state institutions, training and granting of ships for the Coast Guard, and finally the financing of a new ferry to be delivered in the coming month. In addition, he wished to commend the efforts of Ambassador Koji Yanatani for his remarkable work and consolidation of bilateral relations between the two long-standing friends. It called for the further strengthening of economic cooperation. Finally, he stressed the secular link that has been a fundamental basis between the two countries for years and wished the ambassador a good continuation in his career. At the end of the meeting, Mr. Mohammed Ali Ahmed and his host proceeded to an exchange of a gift. Now, in education, in a related context, the Ministry of Interior, Mr. Mumin Ahmed Al-Sheikh, received today, Monday, in his office, the Japanese ambassador accredited to our country, Mr. Koji Yanatani, on a farewell visit. At the outset of this meeting, the Minister of Interior, Mr. Mumin Ahmed, touched on the existing bilateral relation between the two parties, appreciating at the same time the effort made by the Japanese ambassador in Djibouti during his diplomatic assignment in Djibouti. On his part, the Japanese ambassador, Mr. Koji, thanked the Minister of Interior, Mr. Mumin Ahmed, for the warm reception and generous hospitality he received during this meeting. It is worth noting that the Japanese ambassador to Djibouti assumed his duties in the year 2017. The Ministry of National Education and Vocational Training, Mr. Mustafa Mahmoud, on Monday morning also received him in his office. Mr. Koji Anatani on a formal visit. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mr. Mustafa Mohammed, discussed during this meeting the existing bilateral relation and the distinguished cooperation between the two countries, appreciating at the same time the effort made by the Japanese ambassador in Djibouti during his diplomatic duties. Now, in health, the Ministry of Health, Mr. Mohammed Warsame Diriye, proceeded to signing of a document on the joint biennial program 2020-2021 with the WHO representative in Djibouti, Dr. Ahmed Swaitim. The signing of this reference document endorses the launch of a comprehensive program dedicated to health that will be implemented jointly by the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization for the period 2020-2021. It is a document better known by its English acronym GPRM, Joint Program Review Monitoring, which is the reference framework and the dashboard that will determine the main lines of collaboration between the two institutions that commit to implement together all the priority interventions selected in a consensual and concerted manner. The Minister of Health, Mr. Mohammed Warsam Diri, praised the preliminary work and frank, inclusive, and transparent discussion that made it possible to integrate the new strategic imperatives, particularly with regard to the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The Minister of Health expressed his satisfaction with the quality of this document, with the set of public health objectives that can be achieved through the lines of concrete action that allow the continuous strengthening of our health system in order to improve the well-being and health of all our citizens. The Minister of Health, Mr. Mohammed Warsamadri, stressed in his intervention that his action plan summarizes in a general way the priority activities of this department. Let's listen to him.
Ce document fait suite à la finalisation du plan national de développement sanitaire.
This document follows the finalization of the National Health Development Plan for 2020-2024, which sets the priorities of the health sector for the next 5 years. Its development was the subject of a joint consultation, identification, and planning process. These priority activities selected within the framework of our partnership have taken into account the current context, marked by the pandemic with particular emphasis on the preparation and management of health emergencies. We also chose, in accordance with the strategies formulated in the SDPs, to focus during these 2 years on accelerating progress towards universal health coverage through the strengthening of health information systems, the reinforcement of primary health care, health promotion, and the establishment of an accountability and results monitoring system. The programs supported by MS during these 2 years have an allocation of 249 million Djiboutian francs, a financial envelope that will contribute to the achievement of the strategic objectives we have set. I attach paramount importance to rigorous monitoring of activities and regular evaluations of results and their impact on the ground. The World Health Organization is and will remain a privileged partner of the Ministries of Health in efforts to improve health systems.
Now, a workshop under the leadership of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Solidarity was held this morning at People's Palace in partnership with the National Institute of Statistics of Djibouti and the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP. The Ministry of Social Affairs and Solidarity, Mrs. Amona Usman Adan, who chaired this workshop in the presence of the General Director of the INSD, and as well as the Deputy Representative of UNDP, with the participation of key representatives of sectoral departments and technical and financial partners. This workshop was devoted to the restitution of the study on the process and result of the first multidimensional poverty index for Djibouti. The index of multidimensional poverty has enriched the statistical instrument of reference for measuring poverty to further refine the targeting tools to decide on its relevance and the future steps for its for its improvement. Now, on the other side, the Minister of Social Affairs and Solidarity, Mrs. Mona Usman Aden, stressed in her speech at the opening of this workshop the importance of the study related to the first indicator of multi-dimensional poverty in Djibouti. Let's listen to her.
Encore également d'être présente avec vous aujourd'hui dans cet atelier qui va être consacré à l'indice de la pauvreté multidimensionnelle.
It is a real pleasure for me to be present with you today in this workshop, which will be devoted to the Multidimensional Poverty Index. Ladies and gentlemen, the Multidimensional Poverty Index has enriched the reference statistical instruments for measuring poverty and provides a significant amount of details on this project throughout the national territory. The PM will also be used to further refine the targeting tools currently available to us. The management of the social protection response to the impact of COVID-19 has certainly benefited from the existence of these tools and their relevance, but it has also shown the extent to which deployment of social policy needs more data other than scoring in order to introduce maximum control and transparency in the targeting of populations receiving state assistance. Finally, SMEs brought new data and information about poverty mapping and the factors that make it so profoundly deepening. On this basis, we will ultimately have a genuine dashboard that will serve as a decision-making tool. Moreover, the involvement of certain ministries in this study further confirms that the social issues are, because of their cross-cutting nature, at the heart of the various development dynamics, and that we are therefore at the heart of this approach. An illustration of what could be a social barrier. This idea dear to the head of state, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, whom he called to constitute through the coordination of projects and programs of sectoral departments with similar and complementary missions. Ladies and gentlemen, the study on the first index of the IEP of Djibouti informs us in a clear manner on the ongoing developments by the phenomenon of poverty in our country. Let me see the results indicated, the imprint of a strong political will and state investment that is beginning to produce its effects. Indeed, the hardcore of poverty today is made up of 12.29% of households affected by both multidimensional poverty and monetary poverty.
Now, the Ethiopian Minister of Finance, Ahmed Shide, have made successive immersion in different infrastructure of the company Djibouti Telecom to learn about the technologies implemented. Visits that led the delegation to the premises of the landing station of submarine telecommunications cables and the data center or located in Harmus. On the spot, they were welcomed by the Ministry of Communication in charge of Post and Telecommunication, Mr. Ridwan Abdullahi Bahdan, and the General Director, Mohammed Asowi Buh. They followed the explanation of the General Director, Mr. Mohammed Asowi, on the new poles of commercial expansion of Djibouti Telecom. And this, it should be noted with dual endorsement of his supervisory ministry and the government. It is to take advantage through this formidable development of the telecommunications market at the regional and global level. Recall that the national telecommunication operator has made his choice to create an activity of transit capacities and data internationally. Service offered targets operators in the region. It reinforces Djibouti Telecom in its vocation as a regional hub of telecommunications. The head of delegation assigned the guest book of Djibouti Telecom followed the family photo. Now, the Minister of Energy in charge of natural resources, Mr. Yunus Ali Gedi, received in his office in the ministerial complex the General Director of the Djibouti Sovereign Fund. Discussion focused on the importance of this fund and the development of our country, in addition to the importance it reflects in the field of investment in the country, creating job opportunities and facing the challenges that our country faces in combating the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the State Secretary for Youth in Sports, His Excellency Mr. Hassan Mohammed Kamil, received this Sunday, October 5th, 2020, at his cabinet the new ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany, Michael Hostler, for a contact. After the exchange of courtesies, the State Secretary for Youth in Sport noted that the excellent quality of bilateral and multilateral cooperation relations between the Republic of Djibouti and the Federal Republic of Germany for many years. During the audience, the ambassador thanked the State Secretary for Youth in Sport while welcoming the ties between the two countries. He spoke about the new orientation of the government and especially about the importance place of sport in the general policy. He said all the willingness of his country to work to strengthen cooperation in various areas, including youth and sport. For his part, the minister was delighted with this visit, which characterizes the excellent relations between the two countries. He then reviewed the program of his department with particular emphasis. He emphasized on the promotion of sport. In addition, this meeting was the place between the two parties to exchange on the implementation of several projects of a sporting and social nature, which will once again confirm the good relation between these friendly countries. Before taking leave of the Minister in charge of sport, Ambassador Hosler reiterated the commitment of the government of his country to support Djibouti in its emergence. Now, the Minister of Ports of the Galmudug region of Somalia visited our port facilities this morning, accompanied by the advisor to the President of Djibouti Port and Free Zones authorities, Mr. Mohamed Aden. The minister's visit began with the SGTD, followed by the DMP. On arrival, he was welcomed by the General Director of each of these ports, who gave the minister information and explanation of the work equipment materials. Then the minister went to the new Djibouti International Free Zones, where he followed explanation on this site. Finally, the minister went to the Djibouti Demerjoug Industrial Development. The visit of Mr. Abdi Sabir Shuri comes within the framework of the port construction project Hobyo. Recall that the president of the Galmudug region, Mr. Ahmed Abdi Kari, visited Djibouti in this regard. Note also that a team from the Djibouti Port and Free Zones authorities has traveled to Hobyo to collect information on this port for a feasibility study. Now, moving to another subject now, the National Association of Local Communities of Djibouti held this morning a working meeting between the executive board of this association. The objective of this meeting is a consultation exercise that was entrusted to local elected officials, in which are carried three priorities: access, as putting in place a sustainable city, climate change, transport, any related issues such as putting in place a secondary city. Second point concerning the employability of young people. The third point also concerns economic and political governance. This meeting was attended by the mayor of the city, Mrs. Fatima Awal Usman, the president of regional council in the 5 interior regions, the president of the municipality, and also the European Union delegation. News from around the world now. In France, the government decided yesterday evening to place Paris and its close suburbs in maximum alert zone in front of the coronavirus epidemic. This means that new sanitary restriction will be applied, as in Marseille and Guadeloupe. That said, the government has indicated that restaurants will be able to remain open as long as they apply a reinforced sanitary protocol. Move tables away from each other, counts customers closed at 10 p.m. The authorities also note the high circulation of the virus among young people, hence the decision to limit the number of students in university in maximum alert zones. Finally, the government has reiterated the importance of encouraging teleworking, again to limit the risk of the virus spreading. The coronavirus epidemic has already claimed the lives of more than 32,000 people in France. Now, the Azerbaijani president yesterday called for the withdrawal of Armenian forces from Nagorno-Karabakh. More details in this video.
Anglais has only one condition for a ceasefire in Nagorno-Karabakh. The Armenian armed force must leave our territories, the Azerbaijani president said in a televised address, demanding that the Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan apologize to the Azerbaijani people. Let him say, "I will withdraw my troops from invaded territories." Let him say that Karabakh is not Armenia. Ilham Aliyev demanded that Nikol Pashinyan define a precise plan for the Armenian withdrawal from the region. In this case, we will restore the ceasefire regime, the Azerbaijani president promised, insisting that his country was in the process of restoring historic justice. Nagorno-Karabakh, populated mainly by Armenians, seized from Azerbaijan after the fall of the USSR, leading to a war in early 1990s that killed 30,000 people. The front there has been virtually frozen ever since, despite regular clashes, but since the conflict resumed a week ago, fighting has continued to intensify, raising fears of open war between the two countries.
This is it for this edition of 9 p.m. Thank you for watching us and have a wonderful evening.